No one at Carter's diner noticed the man in the faded flannel and worn-out ball cap when he slipped onto a red vinyl stool at the counter. The morning rush was in full swing, plates clattered, coffee pots hissed, and the air was thick with the scent of bacon and maple syrup. It was just after 7:30 a.m., and outside, the city of Fairview was waking up, the temperature hovering at a brisk 51 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside, the hum of conversation and the sizzle from the kitchen made the place feel alive, even if the faces behind the counter looked anything but. Thomas Carter watched it all from his seat, his hands wrapped around a chipped mug of black coffee. He'd built this diner from nothing, starting with a single storefront on the edge of town and growing it into a 4-location chain. Carter's Diner was supposed to be the kind of place where everyone felt welcome: families, truckers, retirees, kids with sticky fingers and big dreams. "Customers are family, staff are family," he'd always said. But lately, something had shifted. Reviews online mentioned rude service, cold food, and a sense that the old Carter's warmth had gone missing. Profits were slipping, and turnover was up. He'd been so caught up in expansion plans that he'd barely set foot in his flagship location for months. Today, that changed. Today, Thomas Carter was just Tom, a customer with a few days' stubble, a flannel shirt that had seen better years, and a hunger for answers. He ordered a burger and fries, then settled in to watch, listen, and if he was lucky, remember what had made this place special in the first place. From his vantage point, Tom could see the whole diner. The booths along the windows were filled with the usual morning crowd, a group of construction workers in muddy boots, a pair of elderly women splitting a stack of pancakes, a single mom trying to keep her toddler entertained with crayons and a coloring sheet. The staff moved quickly, some with purpose, others with a kind of bored efficiency. It didn't take long for Tom to spot the differences. Emily, a waitress in her early 20s, darted between tables with a practiced grace. She wore her hair pulled back in a ponytail, her uniform crisp, her sneakers scuffed from long shifts. She smiled at every customer, crouched down to chat with kids, and never seemed flustered, even when the orders piled up. When a little boy spilled his chocolate milk, Emily was there in seconds, offering napkins and a reassuring wink. "Don't worry, buddy. Happens to the best of us." In contrast, Samantha and Helen, the two cashiers, worked the register with a kind of detached impatience. They exchanged glances and whispered behind cupped hands, their laughter sharp and mean when they thought no one was listening. Tom watched as they rolled their eyes at a customer who fumbled for change, then turned their backs on an elderly man who asked for extra syrup. Their smiles appeared only for the customers who looked like they might tip well or complain if ignored. Tom's burger arrived, juicy, perfectly seared, just like he remembered from the early days. Emily set the plate in front of him with a genuine smile. "Let me know if you need anything else, sir." Her eyes were bright, her tone warm. He thanked her, then watched as she hurried off to help a family with 3 kids under 5. As he ate, Tom listened. The kitchen staff muttered about being short-handed. A dishwasher named Carlos worked quietly in the back, his hands moving fast, his eyes tired. He noticed that Emily was the only one who thanked Carlos when she dropped off dirty plates. The manager, Christopher, was nowhere to be seen, just a shadow in the office behind the swinging door, emerging only to bark orders or check the till. It was the cashiers who drew Tom's attention most. He watched as Samantha and Helen whispered, their eyes flicking toward Emily. "She's such a tryhard," Samantha sneered. "Always making us look bad." Helen snorted. "I heard she's been giving away food again. Bet she's dipping into the register. Wouldn't be surprised if she's the one who's been shorting the drawer." Tom's jaw clenched. He knew the books had been off lately, but he chalked it up to mistakes or the odd free coffee for a regular. Now suspicion crept in. He watched as Emily slipped a few dollars from her own pocket into the register after an older man came up short on his bill. She did it quietly, with no fuss, just with a gentle word. "Don't worry, sir. You're good." Samantha caught Tom's eye, her smile brittle. "Some people just don't know how to follow the rules," she said loud enough for Emily to hear. Emily's cheeks flushed, but she didn't respond. Instead, she cleared the table, humming softly to herself, her shoulders squared. Tom finished his meal, left a generous tip for Emily, and lingered by the door. As he slipped out, he heard Helen mutter, "If only the boss knew what she was really up to." Samantha laughed. "He'd kin her in a heartbeat." "Then maybe we could get someone in here who actually knows how to play the game." Outside, the sky was clearing, the sun breaking through the clouds. Tom stood on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching the diner through the glass. He felt a mix of anger and sadness. This wasn't the place he'd built. Somewhere along the way, the heart had gone missing. But as he watched Emily help a customer with a walker, her patience unwavering, Tom realized something else. The heart was still there. It just needed someone to protect it. He walked away with a plan forming, a way to test his staff, to see who truly understood what Carter's Diner was meant to be. And as he disappeared into the morning crowd, Tom Carter knew one thing for sure: he was done sitting on the sidelines. It was time to take his dinner back, one burger at a time. The morning light filtered softly through the dusty windows of Carter's Diner, casting long shadows across the worn linoleum floor. Thomas Carter, still disguised in his faded flannel and baseball cap, settled into a corner booth with a steaming cup of black coffee. The diner was already buzzing with the usual morning crowd, truckers nursing their first cups, families chatting over pancakes, and the occasional early riser scrolling through their phones. From his vantage point, Thomas observed the rhythm of the diner with a keen eye. Emily, the young waitress he noticed the day before, moved with a grace that belied the chaos around her. Her smile was genuine, lighting up the room as she balanced plates and refilled coffee cups. She seemed to know every regular by name, and her laughter was a balm to the tired faces she served. But not everyone shared Emily's warmth. Samantha and Helen, the two cashiers, were a stark contrast. They whispered behind the counter, their eyes darting suspiciously toward Emily. Thomas caught snippets of their conversation, snide remarks about Emily's generosity, accusations that she was too soft, and giving away too much. Their voices dropped when they noticed Thomas watching, but the disdain was unmistakable. As the lunch rush approached, Thomas noticed a woman with a toddler struggling to pay her bill. Emily stepped in without hesitation, quietly covering the shortfall from her own pocket. The woman's eyes welled with tears, and Emily's gentle reassurance was a stark reminder of the kindness that still existed in this place. Meanwhile, Samantha and Helen exchanged glances, their whispers growing more conspiratorial. Thomas's heart sank as he realized they were plotting to frame Emily for theft, hoping to get her fired and replace her with someone more manageable. Determined to uncover the truth, Thomas devised a plan. He enlisted the help of Jessica, a single mother and regular customer, and her young daughter. They would stage a scenario where Jessica couldn't pay her bill, testing the staff's reactions. The day of the test arrived, and the dinner was packed. Jessica and her daughter took a seat near the window, their faces anxious but hopeful. When the bill came, Jessica fumbled through her purse, coming up short. Emily's eyes softened, and without a word, she covered the difference, offering a warm smile. Samantha and Helen, however, were quick to accuse. They whispered loudly enough for others to hear, casting suspicion on Emily. The manager, Christopher, was caught in the middle, unsure of whom to believe. Under pressure, he reluctantly decided to let Emily go, despite his doubts. Just as the tension peaked, Thomas stood, removed his cap, and revealed his true identity. The diner fell silent as he explained the hidden camera footage that exposed Samantha and Helen's deceit. The staff and customers watched in disbelief as the truth unfolded. Thomas's voice was firm but compassionate as he addressed the crowd, promising to restore integrity and kindness to Carter's Diner. He apologized to Emily publicly, reinstating her with a raise and new responsibilities as a mentor to new staff. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The staff, once divided, began to rally around Emily and Thomas's vision for a better workplace. Customers noticed the change, too, the genuine smiles, the attentive service, the renewed sense of community. Thomas knew the road ahead would be challenging, but with Emily by his side and a team committed to respect and fairness, Carter's Diner was ready to reclaim its heart. The lunch rush hit Carter's Diner like a wave, the kind that left everyone breathless and scrambling. Sunlight poured through the front windows, glinting off chrome napkin holders and the glass pie case, but beneath the cheerful bustle, something cold and uneasy simmered. Thomas Carter, still undercover, still just Tom, to the staff, watched it all from his usual seat at the counter, a half-eaten burger in front of him and a notebook tucked beneath his arm. He'd spent days quietly observing, piecing together the real story behind the smiles and the sizzle. He'd seen enough to know the rot was deeper than he'd feared. Emily, the young waitress with a quick smile and gentle hands, kept the floor moving with grace. She picked up shifts no one wanted, remembered regulars' birthdays, and slipped $1 into the register when a customer came up short. But the cashiers, Samantha and Helen, were another story. Their laughter was sharp, their jokes cruel, and their eyes always seemed to be watching, calculating. Today, Thomas had set a plan in motion. He'd enlisted Jessica, a single mom who came in every week with her daughter, to help stage a scenario that would reveal the truth. Jessica would forget her wallet at the end of their meal, and Thomas would watch how the staff responded. It played out faster than he expected. Jessica and her little girl finished their lunch, then Jessica patted her pockets, her face flushing with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry. I must have left my wallet at home," she said, her voice trembling just enough to be believable. Emily was there in a heartbeat, kneeling beside the table. "Don't worry about it," she said gently. "This one's on me." She pulled a few crumpled bills from her apron and handed them to Samantha at the register. "Just ring it through, okay?" Samantha's eyes narrowed. "Again?" she said loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "That's the third time this month, Emily. You know we have rules." Helen chimed in, her tone syrupy sweet. Maybe if Emily stopped giving away food, the register wouldn't keep coming up short. Emily's cheeks burned, but she stood her ground. "It's not about the money. Sometimes people just need a little help." Samantha rolled her eyes. "Yeah, or maybe you're just covering your own tracks." Thomas watched as the manager, Christopher, was called over. He looked flustered, glancing between the cashiers and Emily. "What's going on here?" Samantha wasted no time. "The drawer's short again, Chris. And Emily's been giving away food, again. I think it's time we had a real conversation about where the money's going." Emily tried to explain, but Christopher, caught between two senior cashiers and a mounting stack of complaints, sighed and shook his head. "Emily, I'm sorry, but I have to let you go. I just can't have this happening anymore." The diner went silent. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded, untied her apron, and walked out the door. Thomas felt his hands clench into fists. He'd seen enough. He stood, straightened his back, and removed his cap. The room seemed to freeze as he walked to the center of the diner. "Excuse me, everyone," he said, his voice steady but carrying. "My name is Thomas Carter. I own this diner." A hush fell over the room. Samantha and Helen went pale, their bravado draining away. Christopher's jaw dropped, and Emily, who had paused just inside the door, turned eyes wide. Thomas looked at the staff, then at the customers. "I've spent the last week here, watching, listening, and learning. And what I've seen isn't the Carter's Diner I built." This place was supposed to be about kindness, respect, and community. But somewhere along the way, we lost that. He turned to Christopher. "Chris, I know you were just trying to keep the peace. But you let yourself get bullied by the wrong people. That ends today." He pulled a small remote from his pocket and pointed it at the TV behind the counter. The screen flickered to life, showing footage from a hidden camera he'd installed above the register. The video played, Samantha and Helen pocketing cash, voiding tickets, and whispering about framing Emily. Gasps rippled through the diner. Samantha tried to protest, but Thomas held up a hand. "Save it! The proof is right here." He turned to Emily. "You were the only one who remembered what this place is supposed to be. I owe you an apology, and a thank you." The customers burst into applause. Jessica and her daughter hugged Emily, and other regulars came forward to shake her hand. Christopher apologized, his face red with shame. Thomas addressed the room. "Samantha and Helen, you're both fired. Effective immediately. Emily, I want you to come back, not as a waitress, but as our new staff mentor. You'll help train every new hire, and you'll have a say in how we run things from now on." Emily's jaw dropped. "Are you serious?" Thomas smiled. "Dead serious. You're exactly the kind of person I want representing Carter's Diner." The mood in the diner shifted instantly. The staff rallied around Emily, and even Christopher seemed relieved. Customers lingered, chatting about the changes and sharing their own stories of kindness. Thomas spent the rest of the day meeting with employees, listening to their concerns, and promising to do better. He announced plans to improve working conditions, raise wages, and create a kindness fund for staff and customers in need. That night, as the last customer left and the lights dimmed, Thomas sat with Emily in a booth by the window. "You saved this place," he said quietly. "And you reminded me why I started it in the first place." Emily smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Thank you for believing in me." Thomas looked around the diner, now filled with laughter and hope. "Thank you for giving me a reason to believe again." Outside, the neon sign glowed brighter than ever, casting a warm light onto the sidewalk. Carter's Diner was back, and this time, it was here to stay. The first Monday after the shake-up at Carter's Diner arrived with a sharp, clear sky and a brisk 47 degrees Fahrenheit breeze that rattled the door every time someone came in. But inside, the air felt different, lighter, almost charged, as if everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. Thomas Carter, no longer undercover but now fully present as the owner, stood by the front window, sipping his coffee and watching the morning unfold. He made the hard calls, exposed the rot, and put Emily in a new role. Now, it was time to see if the heart of his diner could truly heal. Emily arrived early, as usual. She wore her hair in a neat ponytail and a navy blue cardigan over her uniform, a subtle sign of new authority. She greeted every staff member by name, her voice warm but steady. The kitchen crew, Carlos, Maria, and old Pete, looked at her with a mix of curiosity and hope. They'd seen managers come and go, but never one who'd worked the floor beside them, never one who'd stood up for them when it counted. Beth, the most senior waitress, kept her distance, arms folded, lips pressed tight. Jason, who'd survived the transition by the skin of his teeth, busied himself stacking menus, glancing up at Emily now and then as if waiting for her to slip. A couple of new hires, Noah, a college kid with an easy grin, and Tasha, who just moved to town, watched the old guard with wide eyes, unsure where they fit in this new order. The first test came before 8 a.m. A regular, Mr. Jenkins, came in with his walker, moving slower than usual. In the past, he'd been ignored or rushed, but today, Emily met him at the door, took his arm, and led him to his favorite booth. "Morning, Mr. Jenkins. Coffee the way you like it?" He smiled, his whole face softening. "You remember, sweetheart. That's why I come here." Beth watched, her jaw set. But when a young mom with 2 kids walked in, one crying, one pulling at her sleeve, Emily caught Beth's eye and nodded toward the table. "You've got this, Beth. Let me know if you need a hand." For a moment, Beth hesitated, but then she walked over, took the order, and even managed to smile at the little boy. When she came back, she looked at Emily, surprised by her own success. They tipped, she muttered, almost in disbelief. In the kitchen, Carlos and Maria found their rhythm again. Emily made a point to thank them after every rush, passing along compliments from customers and asking for their input on the new menu. Pete, who'd been silent for months, started telling stories again, about the old days. About Thomas's first burger joint, about how things used to be when people looked out for each other. But not everyone was on board. Jason, still smarting from losing his allies, started coming in late, leaving side work for others, and grumbling about the touchy-feely new management. Emily didn't confront him in front of the staff. Instead, she waited until the lunch lull, then pulled him aside. "You're good at this job, Jason. But you've got to decide if you want to be part of this team. If you do, I'll back you. If not, it's time to move on." Jason stared at her, defiant at first. But something in her tone, firm, but not angry, made him pause. "You really think this place can change?" he asked. "I know it can," Emily replied. "But only if we all want it." He nodded, and the next day, he was on time, his apron clean, his jokes softer. As the days passed, the change became contagious. The regulars noticed first, tips went up, smiles came easier, and the old complaints faded away. A few customers even pulled Thomas aside to say, "It feels like the old Carters again. Whatever you did, keep doing it." Thomas watched Emily work and felt a quiet pride. She handled every challenge with patience, training new hires, smoothing over mistakes, and even handling a demanding customer who tried to skip out on a bill. She never raised her voice, never lost her cool. Instead, she listened, solved problems, and made sure no one was left behind. One afternoon, Thomas called a staff meeting. The diner was closed for an hour between shifts, the sunlight slanting through the blinds in golden stripes. He stood at the front, Emily by his side, and looked at each member of his team. "I started Carter's Diner because I wanted a place where everyone felt welcome, customers and staff alike. Somewhere people could get a good meal and a fair shake. Somewhere kindness mattered. Somewhere you could be proud to work and proud to eat." He paused, letting the word settle. "We lost that for a while. But I see it coming back. That's because of you, because of how you treat each other, how you treat our customers, and how you show up every day." He turned to Emily. "This woman reminded me what matters. She stood up for what was right, even when it cost her. And that's the kind of leadership we need." He announced a new program, the Kindness Fund, a pool for staff and customers in need, funded by the diner and tips. He promised new break room upgrades, better schedules, and a bonus system for teamwork and customer compliments, not just sales. Beth raised her hand, her voice uncertain. "Does that mean we're all getting a fresh start?" Thomas nodded. "That's exactly what it means." The room buzzed with excitement. Maria hugged Emily. Noah high-fived Jason. Even Pete cracked a rare smile. That evening, as the dinner rush wound down, Thomas sat at the counter, watching Emily teach Tasha how to balance 3 plates at once. The radio played an old country song, and the laughter from the kitchen spilled out into the dining room. For the first time in a long time, Carter's Diner felt alive. Emily caught Thomas's eye and smiled. He nodded, feeling the weight of years lift from his shoulders. He knew there would be tough days ahead, old habits die hard, and not everyone would stay for the long haul. But the foundation was solid again. Respect, kindness, and hard work were back at the heart of the diner. As the last customer left and the neon sign flickered outside, Thomas locked the door and turned to Emily. "You did good today," he said quietly. Emily grinned, wiping her hands on her apron. "We all did." As they stood together in the quiet, Thomas realized that sometimes The most challenging part of leadership wasn't making the big decisions, it was trusting the right people to lead with you. Carter's Diner was theirs again, and this time they weren't letting it slip away. The first snow of winter dusted the sidewalk outside Carter's Diner, turning the city into a watercolor of soft grays and whites. Inside, the warmth was immediate. Booths filled with bundled-up families, the scent of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon, and a low hum of laughter that hadn't been heard in months. The neon sign in the window glowed steadily against the early dusk, a beacon for regulars and newcomers alike. But the biggest change wasn't in the weather or the decor. It was in the way people looked at each other, staff and customers both, with something like trust. Thomas Carter stood by the pass window, arms folded, watching the new rhythm of his diner. He'd spent weeks rebuilding not just the business but the spirit of the place. He'd seen firsthand how quickly a culture could sour. Emily was at the heart of it all. She moved through the dining room in her navy cardigan, her smile genuine, her eyes attentive. She checked on the kitchen, coached new hires, and made a point of greeting every customer, whether they were a regular or a stranger passing through. The staff watched her, some still skeptical but most grateful for the change. Even Beth, who had once ruled the floor with icy sarcasm, now worked her shifts with quiet professionalism, her old smirk replaced by cautious respect. One afternoon, Thomas called a staff meeting. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the floor as everyone gathered around. He looked at each face: Emily, Beth, Jason, Carlos, Maria, Noah, Tasha, and the rest. He saw exhaustion, hope, and something new, pride. "I started Carter's Diner because I wanted a place where everyone felt welcome," he began, his voice steady. "Somewhere, people could get a good meal and a fair shake." But somewhere along the way, we lost sight of that. We let old habits and bad attitudes take root. We forgot that kindness isn't a weakness, it's our greatest strength. He paused, letting the words settle. Emily nodded, her eyes shining. Beth looked down, her hands folded in her lap. "But we've turned a corner," Thomas continued. "And it's not because of me. It's because of you. Because you showed up, you listened, and you cared. You reminded me what this place is supposed to be." He announced a new program, the Kindness Award. A monthly recognition for staff who went above and beyond for customers and coworkers. He rolled out new benefits, better health coverage, paid sick days, and a kindness fund for staff or customers in need. He promised regular team meetings, open-door policies, and a zero-tolerance stance on disrespect or favoritism. The staff buzzed with excitement. Maria hugged Emily, tears in her eyes. Noah grinned, already brainstorming ideas for the next staff potluck. Even Jason, who had once dragged his feet, seemed lighter, his jokes friendlier, his work more focused. The changes rippled outward. Customers noticed the difference. Service was faster, smiles were more genuine, and the food somehow tasted better. Regulars brought their friends, and new faces became familiar ones. Tips went up, complaints went down, and the diner's reputation began to heal. One snowy evening, a local reporter came in for dinner. She'd heard about the turnaround and wanted to see for herself. She interviewed Thomas, Emily, and several staff, snapping photos of the bustling dining room and the "All are welcome, all are respected" sign by the register. A week later, the story ran on the front page of the city's lifestyle section. Kindness makes a comeback at Carter's Diner. The response was immediate. People called, emailed, and stopped by to say thank you. Former employees returned to visit, some asking for their old jobs back. The story was shared online, inspiring other businesses to rethink their own cultures. But the real legacy was quieter. It was in the way Beth stopped to help a new server with her apron, in the way Carlos taught Noah to flip pancakes just right, in the way Emily listened to a customer's story about losing his job and made sure he left with a hot meal, no questions asked. Thomas watched it all with quiet satisfaction. He knew there would still be hard days, rushes that stretched the staff thin, customers who tested their patience, moments when old habits threatened to creep back in. But he also knew that the foundation was strong now, built on respect, empathy, and the simple, radical act of caring. One night, Emily shook her head, her smile humble. We all did it together. Thomas nodded, feeling the truth of it settle in his bones. That's the only way it ever works. As he locked up, the snow still falling outside, Thomas glanced back at the diner, at the laughter, the warmth, the sense of belonging that filled the room. He realized that leadership wasn't about being in charge. It was about lifting others up, about seeing the best in people, about creating a space where everyone could thrive. Carter's Diner had become more than a business. It was a family, a community, a testament to the power of kindness. And as Thomas stepped out into the quiet night, he knew that was the greatest success of all. Because, in the end, the true measure of a place isn't the food or the profits, it's the way people feel when they walk through the door. And at Carter's Diner, everyone belonged. That was the legacy Thomas Carter wanted to leave. And thanks to Emily, his staff, and the courage to do what was right, it was a legacy built to last.